This is King World News. I'm Eric King, and you're about to hear from Egon von Greyerz. Be sure to go to our homepage, where on Sunday we are going to have a special audio release covering the gold market and much more. But without any further delay, here is Egon von Greyerz. Joining us now is Egon von Greyerz, founder and managing partner of Matterhorn Asset Management. Egon, it has been really crazy out there lately, not only with the swinging global markets, but Bitcoin and so many other things that are on the move. What are your thoughts with what's unfolding here in the gold market and anything else you want to talk about?
Eric, as we have discussed many times, the world has two major chronic problems, which is debt and the dollar. There is a total global debt of $2.5 quadrillion. So that includes liabilities and also derivatives. Remember, 2.5 quadrillion, that's 35 times global GDP. So we know that the debt will never be repaid. And even if you take the pure debt, the pure just without the liabilities and contingent liabilities and derivatives, you're talking about $250 trillion, which is 3.5 times global GDP. The world cannot solve that problem, and the first reaction we will get is the currency reaction, which is going to be the dollar, of course, which has started its fall already, and I will discuss that more a little bit later. And now we also have the 100 trillion bond market, which is also going to collapse, leading to massive increases in interest rates worldwide, which will also trigger derivative defaults, and obviously bank defaults, pension fund defaults, and sovereign wealth fund defaults. That is just financial problems in the world, which is obviously astronomical. But then we have now an added problem in the U.S., which is Trump, who has become a liability, unfortunately, for the already fragile U.S. economy. Why is he a liability? Because the deep state in the U.S. will do anything they can to stop him in his policies, stop him to perform his function as the president properly, and even to get rid of him. So, as we know, they attack whether it's about the FBI or Russia, even if these matters in themselves, that his son-in-law talks to Russia ambassador cannot be that serious. But powers that be want to make it serious. So this will be the political side in the U.S. I can see that as a massive problem, and Trump will not be able to carry through any of his policies, even if some of them are right. Although, of course, if you look at his economic policy, with tax cuts, they will just lead to higher deficits and higher debts, and of course, they will never be approved either. And the other problem is that there is not a single leader really in Europe who respects Trump. And the same in China. I have nothing personally against Trump. I wish that he succeeds. I wish that actually the U.S. comes out of this without massive problems. But sadly, he took over a country which is the most indebted country in the world, at the top of the economy, at the top of the market, with bubbles in every sector of the economy. So therefore, his chances of succeeding are not very great. Now, countries that he will, of course, get on with better, countries like Saudi Arabia, where, of course, there you have the situation of oil and dollar for weapons. And, of course, Saudi Arabia want their weapons and have their oil, so there certainly is a better understanding. But overall, Saudi Arabia is not going to actually survive for that long. They now have deficits of 100 billion a year. And when oil goes down, when the economy turns down, of course, all these oil states will, in the Middle East, will return to the desert. And even Norway, with its oil, is already tapping its sovereign wealth fund, and that used to be the most wealthy country in the world.
What else is happening in the world, Egon, that has you concerned?
What's happening in the world in another area is the fact that government is taking total control of the people and of the systems. We are getting, in the West, to totalitarian states. And this is happening within banking, reporting, cash. We know country after country has limited the amount of cash you can take out and the amount of cash you can spend. Some countries in Europe is only 1,000 euros, for example. And now Greece came out with, a few days ago, a new law that they will confiscate all assets that are not declared. So that will include in safe deposit boxes, properties, were directly confiscated without any possibility to get them back for the holders of these assets. So that's another form of direct control. And of course, a lot of countries are abolishing cash more. We have credit cards. You take Sweden, cash usage in the last few years is down 50%, and they in the next few years they expect to go to zero cash and just credit card. Of course, governments are deliberately doing this because the banking system is bust, and the best way to control cash is to turn off a button, so they can just stop people spending when there is a bank run and people cannot get to the money. So this is why, of course, it is Bitcoin is rising, because Bitcoin today is totally uncontrolled. I doubt that will continue in the next few months or years, because if it gets too big, governments will regulate it, and then it is, after all, just another form of fiat money, although it's not fiat because it's not issued by governments, but it is electronic money rather than paper money, and also it has no underlying asset. So therefore, it's not wealth preservation, but it is free money. It can be transferred freely today with smaller amounts, and this is why Bitcoin is rising. I've said that although it's not a wealth preservation asset, it certainly is the best way now for people in China to get their money out. It's certainly from an investment point of view and speculative point of view, it can rise. It will be a very rough ride, and I wouldn't recommend it at all for wealth preservation, but as an investment, I'm sure that it can go a lot further.
Egon, we'll come back to you in just a minute, but first, KWN receives so many emails from its global listeners asking which high-quality gold companies they should invest in. As a result, today we are pleased to share with our global audience one of the greatest gold opportunities in U.S. history. This legendary management team is about to unleash a massive drill program in the greatest, most prolific gold belt in the world. They have consolidated the second largest contiguous land package in that prolific gold belt, and they are about to unleash a nearly 50,000-meter drill program. This company is Gold Standard Ventures. Website goldstandardv.com, symbol GSV in Canada and on the New York Stock Exchange. Phone number 604-669-5702. Ask for Mark McCartney or John Odd. Now back to the interview with Egon. Egon, let me ask you about the physical side of the gold market. What are you seeing there? I know you deal with the Swiss refiners directly. What are you seeing?
We speak to our refiner friends all the time, and I visit them regularly. I was there just very recently, and they are seeing constant flows to China primarily and to India also. And I mean, all the production is taken up by, firstly, China, as I said, but of course also to India. And they don't see any exports coming from China ever. The refiners believe that the gold that is actually being produced in China stays in China. So the government actually keeps all of that gold themselves, and that's, as we know, it's around 400 tons a year that's being mined in China. So this is the interesting point with gold, that every single ounce of the 3,000 tons mined in the world is sold, and there's no stockpiles anywhere, and they don't even, so it was interesting. Somebody wrote to me the other day and said, the gold miners, they're making a big mistake, and the World Gold Council, they don't have any marketing director or marketing organization or department. But I said they don't need it, because they don't need to market it, because there's the constant demand for all the gold that's being produced. So there's nothing to sell. It's automatic. It's always, as soon as gold is mined, it's been pre-sold, all of it. That's what is happening to the physical market, Eric. And that is why, as I've said many times, this paper market, which depending on how you measure it, is up to 600 times the physical market. That paper market has nothing to do with the real price of gold. That paper market is just a way of manipulating gold. And of course, if you have a market which is 600 times greater than the physical, it's easy to manipulate. But that in the next few months and years is going to fail. I know that, and we're seeing, Eric, the first signs of this failure also. In my view, and because I look at indicators, first of all, I look at the dollar. The dollar, in my view, turned after the U.S. presidential election. It turned down, and the euro, for example, turned up then, and I think the downtrend of the dollar has started. That's got to be a sign for a strong sign for gold to move up. And I've also discussed before the gold-silver ratio. To me, that is a leading indicator. Turned down a year ago, is now consolidating exactly like it did in 2010-11, and then it went from 75, the ratio, down to 30 within 9 months. And I think we will see exactly the same within the next, whether it's within the next 6 or 12 months, but we are not far from that move. The pattern looks exactly the same. When that ratio moves down, it means that gold will go up very, very strongly, and of course silver will go up twice as fast as gold, at least, during that time. So these are very strong signals that I'm getting now. It could be that we will still have strong stock markets for a little while until the autumn, and that everything will happen in the autumn, that markets really start then turning down, the stock markets, bond markets, dollar turns down, and the precious metals markets start moving up in earnest. So I think it'll be an extremely interesting period this autumn. Could start earlier, but it's autumn seems to be the time when the real problems start.
And Egon, as always, for people listening around the world, Gold Switzerland, your company, has the best platform on the planet. All of the big money in the world comes to you, as well as people out there that just want to preserve their wealth that are individuals. Can you talk to people about how they can get involved in your company?
Yes, Eric. The more I see of these problems, the more I realize how important it is when you want to have real money outside of the banking system, real money that you can access. You will not be able to access your money in the bank because the bank will turn off your access to that bank when there's any pressure in the financial system. So even if the bank survives, their government will tell banks to say, turn it off, people can't take any cash out now. And that's why you've got to have physical gold. You have to have it outside your country of residence. You have to have it in a country where there's rule of law and with the tradition of a decentralized government and a government not interfering. This is why we like Switzerland, of course, because it has democracy for 700 years, and the gold industry is about 29% of Swiss exports. So that's why these are the type of countries. Singapore is also a good country. I think Switzerland is better because of these traditions, and therefore that's where people should keep some of their money if they have savings in safe vaults. And this is what we help investors do. We have vaults in Zurich. We have vaults in the Swiss Alps, which is the biggest gold vault in the world and the most secure in the world. And it's nuclear bomb proof, it's gas attack proof, it's earthquake proof, and it's not advertised anywhere. It's kept confidential. So there are possibilities for people to really preserve wealth, and this is what we're trying to help people with. So therefore, they just have to go to the website, goldswitzerland.com, and where they can find all the details.
Egon von Greyerz, founder and managing partner at Matterhorn Asset Management. Thank you for joining us, Egon.
Eric, thank you so much for talking to me, because it's always a real pleasure to talk to King World News, and I know that we will have some very interesting times in coming months and years.
Be sure to tune in on Sundays. KWM will have a special release discussing the gold market and much more. And be sure to tune in each day as we will continue to release interviews with the top people in the world throughout the week. Also, make sure to check out the King World News blog.